Well, my lovely folks out there, probably watching from United States or Canada, as most of you have probably already heard, the actual ground invasion of Israel has begun. Or ground invasion by Israel into Lebanon has begun. Most of the Western media is kind of trying to downplay this, like Israel's attacking a confrontational terrorist organization, also known as Hezbollah, right? And this is after that uh, airstrike that took out the leader and several other people of the command structure. But take you back here for a minute. So, about 2012, 2013, I was told World War III would start in 2025. And in my mind at the time, I was like just going balls to the wall in geopolitical research on just all different kinds of stuff. It was just a point of, you call it a hobby at the time. It was just a point of fascination, held my attention. I enjoyed it. And I thought there's no way in hell we were making it to 2025 before we had a global conflict. And that was me being in my mid-20s, impatient, not understanding the bigger picture. And it looks like we are, in fact, right on schedule. And what you need to know is World War III has to happen. And I don't say that lightly in any way, shape, or form. And I'm not talking about that's my wish for it to happen or it's anybody's wish for it to happen that is not an oligarch, a top government official. I'm saying it from the perspective of the people who get to choose and get to make these decisions that risk all of our lives and our well-being, our economies. So, yeah, don't get mad at me. I'm just a messenger. And that's another thing. Don't handle any of this with emotion. Everything that occurs, geopolitically speaking, and then in turn will have massive domestic effects, probably in the greatest of magnitude before this is all said and done. Don't handle any of the information from an emotional state. And if you're a man with a family or wife or people who depend on you, especially don't. There's no room for emotions in this. Handle everything from a practical sort of Excel spreadsheet checklist sort of way. This is what is occurring. Let's look at the facts that are occurring. Let's think about what may occur in the future. And let's go down our list. How do we prepare for it? How do I set my family and my loved ones up for some level of success while all this is occurring? Because you still got to play the game of life and you still have to be on top of your P's and Q's until and if and when it directly affects you, then if you've gone through these little role plays in your head, then hopefully you are prepared or set up better than most of those folks around you. So I'm not going to have a preparedness conversation around this right now. We're just doing a little geopolitical up to speed, get everybody up to speed. So what we're looking at now is the official date of World War III. I don't know what exactly it's going to be considered, but I see Ukraine and Russia and that whole situation as basically Germany invading Poland in 1939. It was a little over 2 years before we actually got involved in the battle. Now we're looking for that front. Ukraine is completely toast as far as its military capabilities. 600,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers. Every person they handed a rifle for the most part, and they have zero equipment left. Everything that's going on there is more or less directly Russia. What is my cat doing? Sorry, my cat is... I have a little kitten that I rescued from the barn. He's being highly annoying. It's direct NATO Russia at this point. And so that front, and it's about to go para-frickin-bolic. Because as soon as there is a, let's just say a German fighter plane gets shot down by an S-400 or S-500, and it becomes like the widest of public news, then they're not going to be able to hide it anymore. And they have hid some of these instances of conflict, and most of the time they say, oh, it was a Ukrainian pilot, or they say it was a Ukrainian launch missile, or whatever. They deflect the direct confrontation as far as how it is reported. So you have that. You have the Russia-Ukraine. Okay, so that's front number one. Front number two is the Middle East, and Middle East is the powder keg that was always going to start World War III. And we're going to focus on that mostly today because China-Taiwan is going to flare up again. Probably first quarter, if we make, I mean, it might escalate so fast that China just says, screw it, we're going to go fourth quarter. And because all China's been doing for 3 years is getting all their ducks in a row, all their military equipment in a row, all their units assigned, factories being transitioned over from making crap for Walmart to military boots, fatigues, all the little doodads that is required to put 7 million people in uniform. So China's been working on that, but we're just going to push that to the side for now. Israel's job was to start World War III. And the reason it has to occur is there's two options. Number one, the West completely reforms and gets back to what it was supposed to be. And that basically means all the oligarchs behind the scenes get ousted from their influence, more or less, and the whole political structure is gutted and redone in the way it was supposed to be redone when our country was founded. I'm speaking about the United States at that point. We all know that's not going to happen. As much as we would like it to happen, it won't happen. And people who are good guys, I hate to do good guy, bad guy sort of thing, because everybody has an agenda. But let's say people who are the very few that are left, less than 50% at this point for sure, that want to see United States restored to former glory, you could say, but to the prominence we had in 60s, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, but we started to fade pretty quick at that point. I just lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. So even those people that want to see that restored, they want World War III too. Because we're now dealing with a populace that is so coddled and so babied. It's the old thing that good times make weak men, make weak men, and then hard times make good men, and then it does this cycle, right, in stages. So it's not, as long as it doesn't get out of control, they want it. Humans are weird by nature. We need shocks to the system. We need catastrophic events, especially when you're talking about turning a whole society around. And this could get very, very ugly for us. I'm not going to dodge around that fact, but that's not where our focus needs to be at this point. So going back to Israel, because the economic situation is the way it is in the West, we've gutted our manufacturing. The United States dollar, petrodollar system is like a virus. As soon as it stops expanding and the debt gets spread out across the globe, as soon as it starts to contract, it's dead. It's over. It's history. It's on life support. It cannot survive without it. Not getting into an economics or financial conversation here, but it's the way that system was set up once we pulled off the gold standard. So. And that's been happening, and the death nail was about 4 or 5 years ago. As soon as Saudi started accepting contracts for non-U.S. oil payments, it was just completely screwed. And people were backing off the dollar as far as holding it for their global or their reserve currency. So, if you don't know, very briefly, you had to have dollars to buy on the international market. So mainly that was energy on the international market, but it also spread to other commodities. So countries would hold it in reserves. But everybody's starting to do their backdoor deals now. Not even so backdoor, it's pretty open. Saudi will take rubles, they'll take rupees, they'll take yen. They don't care anymore. And so our whole system, the whole foundation on which our system was set up rather, is no more. It's still people dealing with it, obviously, but like I said, it has been contracting at an alarming rate. And if the West doesn't do anything, then our economies are just going to implode on themselves. And I know a lot of people, again, we're not getting into the whole weeds on all this right now, but just take my word for it for now, so we can get to the point. So with that said, okay, so this Israel, as soon as they launched their assassination of this Hezbollah leader, that was a provocative, I can't speak. Sorry, it's 1 in the morning. I put a septic system in today, and I'm tired. So it was to provoke Iran into this confrontation, which uniformly will pull Russia into the confrontation, and then it's global at that point. Because if Russia gets involved, then China's going to have Russia's back, and blah blah blah. So all the chains start to get connected at that point. But we failed miserably, taking out Syria and Iran over the teens. 2014, when we tried to overthrow Assad, and the next target was Iran. Russia came in, backed them up. We failed, and so now this is not a. This would be a good idea to start World War III. This is like, especially for Israel. Israel will not exist unless they fight to the death. They are in a terrible, terrible way. And yes, they have a very, very formidable military. They have excellent intelligence. They have excellent weaponry. I'm not denying any of that. But I don't care what equipment you give a 6-man SEAL team, what kind of cool doodads they have. If they've got 15,000 people bearing down on them, there's almost nothing outside of a nuke that is going to keep those people at bay. So that's kind of the situation that Israel finds itself in. It's going to fight its way out. It's kind of caged, and so it's going to fight its way out, and it's going to then in turn start this global conflict, and they want to pull Iran in, because then it's going to be fighting on 2 fronts now, and then as soon as this escalates a little bit more is when we'll probably jump over to the China front with Japan, the Philippines, and Taiwan dealing with that issue, and obviously we'll be involved as well. But the biggest problem that most Americans don't understand is this is not 1997. We do not have military supremacy. And I'm not talking about fighting a war on our shores and whether or not we would win that, right? If we pulled back all our military assets and all Joe Blows in this country that are very proficient with arms and the militias that would pop up, I'm not talking about defending the homeland. Russia's defending their homeland, which means you're never going to defeat them over there. It's an asinine thought. So now we're talking about, rock against rock, and it's going to get very, very rough very, very quick. Russia is not to be underestimated. Their missile technology, their nuclear technology, their cyber warfare, not just like computer, but their electronic warfare, I should say, not cyber. Electronic warfare, second to none. And we will not beat them in their backyard. It's just silliness to think, because we do not, and I don't think we ever could have, not in their backyard. I mean, watch my words what I'm saying. I'm not saying if we met Russia on a neutral field, that's a different conversation. But when you're fighting somebody who has 20 times the manufacturing prowess that you have, which Russia has all the manufacturing capability in the world. They have literally half the world's resources in their backyard. Their country is the richest from a resource standpoint in the world. And so they have, right behind them, they got the mines that go over to the manufacturing plant that pops out all the goodies they need. And their economy is now broke into the top 5 in the world ever since we tried to sanction them. That's because all the countries around the world need Russia. They need what they have to offer. So it's just a blind spot of American ignorance and British ignorance. I mean, the Brits are so fucking ignorant, pardon my language, but it's startling how ignorant. And they're going to be soundly humbled in this process. And hopefully, at some point, this reaches a stage where we can not let it get to everybody's shores, if you know what I'm saying. Like, hopefully this is something that, basically what I'm asking is Western bankers and Western politicians to be humbled and admit defeat at some point and take a step back to avoid the global confrontation, before it gets to be what everybody fears. where those large things start flying through the air, up into space and then back down. And nobody wants that, but it is certainly the highest risk we've had in human history. The Cold War doesn't even touch where we're at right now. Doesn't touch it. And you think about how prepared the American citizens were getting during the Cold War. People built bunkers under kitchens and all kinds of shit. Like, everybody knew that this was a real and present danger. And that is back when we were at our peak. We had a very strong middle class. We had very high manufacturing capabilities. We had a very strong economy and dollar to go with it. We have none of that anymore. So, with that said, we have a lot of jockeying for position. Egypt moved 100,000 troops to the Sinai Peninsula. That backs up to Israel's west side. Now, my guess is that is Israel defending that line, keeping people from it. They're not exactly friendly with Israel, but they're not enemies of Israel. So I think it's keeping that border safe, just so if there is somebody trying to do anything to Israel, they can capture those people, or they can thwart them, they can kill them, whatever they have to do. And because the last thing you want is an attack coming through Egyptian borders, and then Israel's obviously going to look at Egypt like, what the hell? Was that you? Was that somebody you were endorsing? So, a lot of military stuff is moving all over the place. And if you look at a map, you should get an idea of where everything is. And you can just kind of understand how this will play out. Obviously, the big fish, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Israel, Turkey, there in the Middle East, who are going to control the most military capability. And we already know which side Iran would be on in this conflict. And Saudi Arabia's kind of wishy-washy. I think Saudi Arabia will surprise the West with how little allegiance it has. It'll have the allegiance up to a point of its well-being. And this has already been demonstrated by their willingness to deal outside of the U.S. dollar with their oil trade. So it's not good for Israel, guys. I mean, it is really bad. I mean, that's all I can say. This is not going to go well. And yes, the hope is that there's a calm down period, and that's all the crap I'm supposed to say to make people feel better. I don't see how any of that happens. I think this just goes parabolic after this point. Now, that doesn't mean every day of every month. Wars take a while. Things, materials, diplomacy, all the stuff that has to occur for large offensives to take place, it takes real time. And so don't get in the Facebook, YouTube mentality of like instantly knowing everything that's going on. You just got to kind of zoom out. I mean, it might steadily go on and we don't directly get involved in the Middle East for another 6 months. Equipment and stuff like that. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, where NATO troops are in dogfights and firefights with Iran, for example. That kind of direct conflict might take a while. But that whole time, that whole powder keg is going at it. So there's still a lot going on. So let's just be highly aware. And this can go very badly, very quickly. It is an extraordinary, real and present danger. And also don't freak out about it. Like I said, do not have emotion about it. I mean, obviously it's sad because of the lives that have been lost up to this point and the lives that are going to be lost. And it's atrocious. It's terrible. War is the worst of all things that humans do to each other. But you wishing or feeling bad about it doesn't make it go away. You have to take care of you and yours and do what is best. So with that, I need some sleep. And there's going to be new news tomorrow. And so we'll chit-chat about that, I'm sure, if I can pop on here. I would expect information to come pretty darn quick. And significant information. At least a few times a week of major major moves that are happening. And so just keep your eye on it, folks. All right. Appreciate it. Bye.